Whoa, I'm talking the whole time on mute. There we go. Hello, everybody. Thanks for those of you who are joining us here today live. My name is Matt Bezick, the executive director of the Oregon Trail Association. And today I wanted to do just a quick kind of recap, refresher on what exactly our Last Mile Award is. Kind of just go through stuff, answer some questions, kind of provide some tips for those of you who maybe are new to it or have been doing it for a while for what leads to students often being funded, and just show you kind of the resources out here. So this video, the recording, is eventually going to be put up on our website here. So I'm at oregontrio.org, and under scholarships, there is this Last Mile. There are two links right now. We're on the main page, which is that Last Mile Award. There's also this Q&A recording. We did a call a while back. That was about a year ago now. So just doing kind of a Q&A where a bunch of the scholarship readers who read for these and determine awards just kind of talked about their process a little bit and what goes on behind the scenes, and kind of giving some advice, definitely to students. This one's very much meant for students to kind of be successful as we move forward. So this will probably live there as well. But we thought it'd be good to do another check-in and just kind of go over what the program is in general. So the Last Mile Award is a scholarship that Oregon Trail Association provides directly to our students. So of the state funding we receive to our association that helps support a lot of the projects, help support my position, we take $100,000 of that every single year, and it is kind of set aside for these particular students in what we call the Last Mile Award. So just a quick brief overview is that this is really trying to target those students who are close to finishing their degree, and we define close as within 45 credits, and it doesn't matter if it's an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, but they are starting to reach that point where maybe they've been in college a long time, maybe they were in college previously, and they are seeing their like Pell Grant eligibility or their ability to borrow loans through FAFSA depleting. And despite being maybe a few classes, a few terms away from graduating, they just don't have enough funds to get across the finish line. So we kind of developed this award in this process to get funds to these students who typically aren't always winning scholarships at this point anymore. The amount of the scholarship, it used to be kind of much higher, and we've kind of settled into a range. The awards are typically at the highest we have kind of decided to award recently is $2,500. That's not as life-changing as what the amount used to be when we first rolled this out, but we've still found that students who are winning these awards tend to find success and still move on to graduation, and just that significant enough to be a nice bump, but is often enough to kind of continue motivating them to finish with their degree. So there is no GPA considerations. Like what your grades are mostly irrelevant. We just want to kind of identify the students and have them answer a couple kind of narrative questions in the process. So I quickly just kind of wanted to go over what is actually required. So we do ask them to demonstrate financial need or kind of an exhaustion of federal financial aid. So I'm going to click on this down here really quick and actually bring you to the form itself. So we'll ask you to actually upload like a screenshot from your FSA ID, kind of showing a status of loan usage, like the percentage and how much federal loans have been taken out. There is some instructions in a PDF on here to kind of help students navigate that. We asked them to submit an education plan. So this is just a fillable PDF that kind of just shows us how many classes they have left. If a student is one term away, that is going to be more appealing to the committee than somebody who has like 3-4 terms left, because we award these every single term. This is not a once a year thing. Every single term we award funds. $30,000 is fall, winter, spring, with about 10 going to summer because we tend to see less students there. So students going to just plug in kind of what their academic plan is. We also give them a spot to kind of highlight what those financial summary is, particularly stuff that's separate from like their tuition and what the institution is charging. So the important pieces are is we still list unmet need because we know that's like a thing the institution will often put on a student aid report or whatever. I think it's called that, whatever. Your like financial aid summary will often indicate an unmet need, but we also give students the ability to ask for a requested amount. So most ask for like the full amount, the maximum possible. But if a student generally maybe just has a hold on their account and only needs $500 or even $1,000 would go like a really long way, they can request an amount less than 2,500. And I can tell you from experience that the committee notices that, because if a bunch of students, like $1,000 really would make a big difference, we can just help support more students if they're asking for less money. So that often can lead to some increased success when you're asking for less funds. Most of this is designed for you all as TRIO professionals. So the TRIO professionals themselves, the only thing that's asked of you is to complete this checklist. There is an entirely separate form for you to submit this. So you don't have to give this to the student. You just put in your name, institution, email, the student's name, and then you upload this checklist. The checklist, it kind of does some of the due diligence on our behalf from OTA, in that you can kind of confirm for us that the student is within 45 credits, that they're engaged. We would like these funds to go to students who are really utilizing and making the most out of TRIO, not somebody who's enrolled but isn't really taking advantage of the advising, tutoring, kind of all the things your program offers. So just that they're engaged, that you see them as having, significant financial needs and definitely being a good applicant, and that hopefully you've looked at that education plan. We really recommend that. There are plenty of students who just submit this on their own without running it by their TRIO advisor, and they tend to just not look as good, or they'll submit the wrong document. They'll kind of upload something different, or even their those financial aid documents. We've seen a lot of people upload institutional documents instead of something from an FSAID. So having them go through that advisor and kind of having some processes in place is just going to dramatically increase the student's likelihood of getting funded. I can tell you from the review committee, when students submit the wrong thing or don't include something, you're basically guaranteed to not win the funds. So the most important piece is just going through and kind of answering each and every component. And then lastly, it is these 3 essay questions. So what impact has TRIO made in your educational journey up to this point? Particularly highlight if you've been a part of like multiple TRIO programs, or if they're involved beyond just being an advisor, if they're a peer mentor, if they do tutoring for you, like those multi kind of impact points are definitely noticed by folks. Though if you were just heavily impacted by only being in your single TRIO program, obviously still highlight that. But financial challenges, this very much is where we want you to talk about what are the financial circumstances around you. In some cases, it may be a place where there's complications. Like you maybe don't have a lot of student loans you've taken out yet, but that's because you can't, because you've already taken them out previously and paid them off. Or we'd like to see if a student has a higher student loan balance, those are going to be students that are prioritized by the committee, because it just looks like they are in more dire need. But you may have an adult student who's gone back in education and they've already paid off all their student loans. And they're like, I would love to not have to take more. I just got done paying off $70,000 worth of these. So like, this is a space for you to highlight very specifics, as well as like personal life, right? If you have car issues, healthcare issues, family issues, or death in the family, right? Like we understand that there are far more financial difficulties than just whatever the tuition is being charged to you from the institution. So, and then generally just a place for them to indicate kind of the obstacles and challenges that have impacted their journey. So this is a place to just kind of, I don't want to say it's like a sob story, but definitely we want to hear from you about kind of what are those challenges, because the whole point of this is like you have found a way to persevere as a student and have come so far, you're so close to finishing. Like we want to help support you finish. So like we want to hear you and listen to you and give you a space to kind of explain the obstacles you've had to overcome maybe in a row to this. It is not just a student who's like, I have just dicked around in college for several years and am finished and I'm running out of money. Can I get some more, please? Like there were, that students probably not getting funded, just generalizing there. But so that is kind of an overview of the program. And we just awarded students for the fall term, and the review committee wanted to really encourage doing this call again, because we wanted to highlight some of the areas that make for really successful candidates. And the first is that this really is not meant to be kind of a thing that gets blasted out to every single student, because we want it to be almost like an invite opportunity. Like when you're meeting with that student, you're doing advising, you're looking at maybe some financial aid help, and you identify like, wow, they definitely have a need, or they've had a lot of obstacles they've had to overcome. Like there's actually this like very specific scholarship that is very much meant for you. We'll take applications from anybody who meets the qualifications, but we also want to just save you time. We want to save the students time and make sure that they can be competitive. So students who really have been in school a longer time and have used a lot of their Pell are going to stand out. The importance of student loans. I know we don't want to, ideally, our students wouldn't have to take out loans, but if we are comparing a student who has run out of Pell Grant eligibility, close to graduation, and they're applying for the scholarship and they have never taken out loans, or maybe only have $6,000 in student loans versus the exact same student, same difficult life circumstances, same Pell situation, but they are $60,000 in loan debt. That student just has a greater need. As much as we would love to have students not have to take out student loans to complete their education, that first student still has that as an option. Again, we fully acknowledge it's not ideal, but we're really trying to identify those students who genuinely don't have other options and may legitimately have to drop out of school because they just don't have enough money and there are no means by which they can acquire additional funds. So those students are going to be kind of higher priorities. With all of these questions, with their education plan and these 3 essays, those are the 4 components we grade, and they're all just like a 1, 2, 3. 2 is average, 1 is kind of below average response, and a 3 is exceptional. We also have some bonus points based on the percent of your student loan. So if you look at the form itself, there is a question about dependency status, independent or dependent. Obviously, that's going to change how much student loans you can actually borrow. If you're an independent student, you can borrow more based on kind of the FAFSA loans than you can as a dependent student. So that is going to change the ratio. So the response to that and their financial aid information they submit kind of determines what is like the maximum amount of loans that you have borrowed to date based on the information you submitted. So we use that to kind of factor in some bonus points to incentivize these funds going to students who have kind of maximized that student loan aspect a bit more. All these things are also, we are constantly making tweaks and adjustments. If you like vehemently disagree with some of these decisions, it is always kind of a fluid conversation, and you would definitely be someone I would love to invite into that last mile review committee. We are looking to add people into this now. It's really nice to have a robust, right now the committee's been 12 individuals. Most of them are college advisors or directors from across the state. And we kind of just want to have a lot of equity and diversity in who's looking at these to make sure that we're providing these out in just a fair manner. And it is also a really good opportunity to increase your ability to encourage students to do this, as well as have some inside information for your own students to know how to be more successful when you can kind of see how the sauce is made on the back end and be a part of that committee. I do want to mention too, everybody who reviews these, they never get to review students from their own institution. We kind of make sure there are not any conflicts of interest there. So, all right. Sandra had a question about how many applications do we get on average? It's around 50 is usually on the low end to about 65 individual students per term. And at $2,500 a piece for $30,000, that's around 12 students we fund. So we're looking at, less than anywhere from 25% in a lower application term to as low as, 15% of the students who apply are actually receiving funds in a typical cycle. I kind of want to pause there for a sec. We're about 15 minutes in here. I did a nice overview. I kind of briefly talked about what it is we kind of prioritize. I'm speaking we as in a general sense. I know that there were a couple on. They gave me enough notes. We had a couple readers who were here briefly, but I think they logged off because it's very much not necessarily meant for them. So I kind of wanted to open things up, though, if there are any questions or clarifications anyone's looking for.
I have a question.
Yeah.
so when you say that the readers don't read for students at their school, does that mean, let's say they have 12 applying from their school, that they read the rest of them? Are those the only ones they're not reading?
No, so that's a lot to go. The first time ever we did this, we had like 55 applicants and we read all of them, unless it was a student or institution. That just took like hours and hours and hours. It took way too long. So now that we have a much larger committee, people are usually reading somewhere between like 15 and 20, maybe low 20s applications. And I just try to create enough of a mix where we are getting anywhere from 3 or 4 eyes on every single application. But you are not like reading, like I kind of go out and blot out students in your program, but then I go through and kind of randomly distribute it. So the readers are only doing about 15 to 20 on average. So it takes about an hour, I would say, on average, to review these as an actual reader. It also reduces some of the fatigue, because I can tell you from early on when we did this, like some of those essays get like really heavy, and even the students who maybe score lower on this are still like in pretty dire circumstances. They could really, really benefit and use these funds. So it can get really emotionally challenging to read like 50 of these in a row and try to differentiate them. So we've tried to reduce how many they read. Are students notified if they do not fill out the application correctly? I do not, only because I only really dig into the specifics after the due date hits and I'm processing the applications. All these kind of get put into I try to make the process as simple as possible for the reviewers. So each student is like anonymous. They don't see names. I blot out any names in any application material. So they just see like student one, student two. Each one is its own Google form. They kind of select their names and then they can review the information and input those scores. So because of that, the only time I would see if there's any kind of mistakes made in that process is if I would have to go back to them after the fact, and then they would kind of open a can of worms of allowing them to submit after the due date. So I have not done that previously, mostly out of just sheer time and effort on my end, kind of managing the program. So yes, they're not necessarily aware. There's our most students submit everything correctly, submit the right documents. So we feel fairly confident that the instructions are clear enough. I know it's not the most simplest, right? This is not like, I'm going to share my screen again. I'm aware that this is not like the easiest of instructions, but I think it is there's been a high enough success rate that we feel comfortable, if a student does not submit it right, that they had ample instructions and hopefully support to do so correctly. All right, so receiving the award. Once the usually like the due date this time is November 17th for the fall. So the way this normally works is that's like a Friday. On Monday morning will go in and compile everything, put it in those review forms and send it to the committee. They then have like 2 weeks usually. I think we might do 3 this time because that falls on Thanksgiving. So they'll have until like December 8th to review all of the submissions. And then that following week, the week of the 11th, we meet, make the award determinations, and then kind of determine the deadlines for the next time around. Pretty much that same day or the very next day, I send notifications to all the students who were not awarded, just letting them know that they were not selected. And then I immediately I give all the students a phone call, and then I send emails to them. And included in that is this release form. The release form just asks for their student ID number, which is required to actually get the funds in like directly into their account. I pretty much just send the check to the financial aid departments or a business office with kind of instructions in a letter so those funds get into their account. We try to be as crystal clear as possible about how we want the funds distributed, but I can tell you that it sometimes doesn't always go ideally the way we would like it. So I'm going to share my screen here really quick. This just happened with a Portland State University student who was awarded. Their funds came, but the financial aid office applied it to like the whole year instead of like just fall term, which they were just, could be annoying if you were expecting it all to be upfront and you were going to save some money up front. So this is the letter that's included to the financial aid offices. So it says it's designed to provide last dollar funding, the hope being that you're not going to lose other scholarship and award as a result of getting this. Like, we genuinely want this to apply, and there's no limitations to use of the funds. Any excess funds the scholarship may provide goes directly to them in a refund. That's our request. Here's where we say the entirety of the award can be dispersed immediately or spread out for the remainder of the academic year at the discretion of your office. For the most part, I would like to think financial aid offices act in the student's best interest and do what makes the most sense to them. But I know there have been situations where that hasn't worked out. In those cases, oftentimes I can try to communicate or call the financial aid office to see if we can negotiate how those funds are allocated. Because like we're the ones sending the check in, right? We are essentially like a foundation who donates money, who gets to kind of dictate how it's donated, but financial aid offices do have to operate within certain parameters for legality reasons, and they are sometimes limited based on kind of what we ask for, especially when it comes to like that summer term. We've run into challenges where if a student isn't necessarily taking classes in the summer term and they want those funds to apply maybe backwards, there are challenges there, but we try our best to work directly with students and programs when that stuff comes up. So any other questions regarding anything last mile related? All right, if there is nothing else, again, the OTA board has approved these funds kind of for the entirety of this next biennium when we have these state funds. So this is going to be a staple for a long time moving forward. Every single term, we are going to be rolling these out. That application is almost always open. I only close it for small windows, but after the deadline hits, until we basically made the awards, and then I pretty much immediately open up again, update it for the new term, and give you all ample time to communicate this to students and give them a window to submit materials. So yeah, any final thoughts or questions?
I might be interested in reading, but I have a question.
Yes.
What's the time frame that you have after the deadline?
Usually I give people 2 weeks to go through your forms, and it's literally one meeting a quarter. So there's like the review time. We don't meet before, like I will usually do an individual meeting with people that want to be readers just to kind of like bring you up to speed, make sure you understand the process. And then we just kind of throw you in the deep end, right? I'll walk you through what a review form looks like, and you'll have a chance to go through that process. And then the quarterly calls are just those calls where all the scores have been compiled, and we just look at kind of the ranked students, determine who we want to fund, have some like conversations if there's any kind of gray area with students, and then we determine all the due dates and the timelines for the next kind of period. So yeah, if you are interested, I can kind of add you in there and maybe schedule time we can touch base. And yeah, anybody live here, anybody watching this recording, definitely please reach out. We'd love to. The more people we put on this, honestly, the less work it becomes for everyone on the committee, and just kind of helps make this entire process as equitable as possible. So
Yeah, I'll be in
yeah.
touch with you, Matt.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let you can keep thinking on it. Just email me directly if you for sure want to get added, and I'll move forward. So
Sounds good. Thank you.
all right. Anybody else have any thoughts or questions? Okay. Just a tight 25 minutes. I love it. I appreciate you all being here live, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks, guys.